strong.
Hey guys, welcome back to YouHubTV. My name's Alex, and today I felt like putting on my conspiracy hat on. I was just watching like some Joe Rogan, and I decided that I'm gonna go ahead and like do like a reaction slash giving my thoughts on a video that I've watched probably last year. So this is not like a first time reaction. This is more like a fifth time reaction. But this is a video that I wanted to like share with you guys, my audience. And I really wanted you guys to like basically comment on this video and let me know what you actually think, because this, when I listened to it the very first time, it blew my mind. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's hop into it. This is a video, or at least a clip from Tom O'Neill when he's discussing MKUltra, and let's go ahead and listen to it.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
This story is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and I think it's also a really important part of human history. Imagine if the whistleblower had not come forward and we didn't know about MKUltra. And all those documents didn't they didn't find the warehouse where the documents were.
Right.
Just imagine.
Oh, yeah, we never would have known about
lost, like Kaiser Sose.
Nobody in the
Did you guys get that reference? Kaiser Sose? Pretty much it's like a it's a fictional villain, or it was like the mastermind in The Usual Suspects. Pretty much Kaiser Sose was like the criminal mastermind of like the underworld, and nobody knew who it was, and he had like a backstory where he was killing his mom. Well, he was killing like a lot of people, and it turned out he was pretty much fake.
program has ever come out and talked about it. I mean, I went to a couple of the guys who are still alive, wouldn't talk to me.
Of course.
I mean, they always fall back on, we sign an oath with the agency.
Right.
Bullshit.
If we talk to you without permission and they're not going to give us permission, we could go to prison.
Just imagine what life must have been like for them, knowing that this is what they were doing to people.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a strange way to. These people are agents for the federal government. I mean, what kind of precedent does this establish?
Well, most of the people doing the research were subcontracted researchers at, medical
I don't know about you guys, but like I find all of this like super, super interesting.
personnel at prisons. And in the case of Jolly West, he was first in the Air Force and then he was in university settings. And Jolly was, once he got to the University of Oklahoma, he was experimenting on patients. And in one of his letters to Gottlieb asking for more funding, he's saying working with psychiatric patients actually benefits us because people can't, I'm not quoting directly here, but he was making the argument that their weird behavior wouldn't be noticed by anybody at the hospitals.
So pretty much they're drugging homeless people, drugging like psychotic people or people that have like mental issues, because guess what? Nobody's going to notice them because they already have like pre-existing mental issues. So if you're experimenting on them, who's going to question it? Who's going to be like, why is John acting strange when he's always been acting strange?
Because they're psychiatric patients. So these people are getting LSD, which is a pretty powerful drug, and other drugs he was using, and he was hypnotizing them in many of his experiments without their knowledge, and they're psychiatric patients. I mean, it's worse than Nazis. Your mind is, the next most important thing besides your soul, and they're tampering with it. One of Jolly's colleagues, the guy who actually took over the department when Jolly in '69 came out to UCLA from Oklahoma, said to me, because I would do this with people, I would show them all the documents, and he said Wes was one of his best friends. He'd known him for, I think, 45 years when Wes died in '99. But he said to me, Jolly, it doesn't surprise me that he would have done this. This is the Jack Ruby stuff, which I guess you haven't gotten to yet. Jolly was Jack Ruby's psychiatrist.
Oh, Jesus.
It's a whole...
That makes sense too, right?
Yeah. Actually, I won't spoil
Did you
it
see
for
the
you.
photo of Jack Ruby out in the hallway?
I did. I was impressed. Yeah, yeah. Well, you're going to get to about 30 or 40 pages on Jack Ruby and Jolly West. I don't want to spoil it for you or for the listeners if they haven't read the book yet, but
Up to this day, I still haven't read the book. I just pretty much just like go back to like this and well, these couple interviews or the clips that he has and pretty much just like try to piece everything together. I don't have like time to read that book, honestly. But if you're interested in it, like go ahead and like support him.
Jolly West inserted himself into the Ruby case after Ruby was convicted of shooting and killing Oswald in the spring of '64. Before he was going to testify to the Warren Commission, he had never testified at his trial about why he killed Oswald. His defense argument was that he had epilepsy and he had an epileptic fit and shot him and was amnesic of the shooting.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So
and that fits right into the narrative like a key.
Well, this gets better.
As I said, guys, I'm putting on like my conspiracy hat because this one right here freaks me out. The reason being, this guy right here did like so much research that it's actually proven to be true. So
West inserts
Pull that microphone out towards your face.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
So
You're getting to this.
Yeah, I move. So West inserts himself into the case, gets assigned through his connections to Ruby's new lawyer, Hubert Winston Smith, who's a whole other kettle of fish. But anyway, goes to the Dallas County Jail in, I think it was April of '64, to examine Ruby in preparation for not the Warren Commission testimony, which he was giving in a couple of months, but for his next trial, because he had gotten an appeal for a psychiatric review. And West, who had told Sidney Gottlieb in these early letters from the 50s that part of his experiments were inducing insanity in a person without their awareness. West goes to examine Ruby, emerges from the county jail, and there's press waiting for him. And he announces that within the preceding 48 hours, Ruby had a psychotic break that was irrevocable. He couldn't return to sanity. He had audio and visual hallucinations. During the exam, he said Ruby hid under a table because he thought there were people in the room trying to kill him, told West that he could hear children's screams outside his jail cell, as Jewish children, as they were boiled alive. And West said he's completely insane. That was the day. I mean, there was no evidence of Ruby being mentally ill prior to West's exam. West was alone with him in the cell and then treated him for about 6 months. When Ruby finally...
come on, guys. I know we're just like inferring right here, but it's so obvious that he pretty much did that shit. Like, come on now. Come on now.
gave his testimony to the Warren Commission. So Earl Warren, Chief Justice Warren, who was head of the commission, flew down to Dallas with Gerald Ford, who was in Congress and on the commission, and Arlen Specter, the young Arlen Specter, who was an investigator for the Warren Commission, who eventually came up with the magic bullet theory. He called it the magic bullet conclusion. Anyway, the three of them, put Ruby under oath, and Ruby babbled, was incoherent, grabbed Arlen Specter, who was like him, Jewish, and he said, "Don't you know they're killing Jews? And they've killed my brother and cut off his legs. I hear them being tortured outside my cell." They couldn't use anything. West, that was one of his objectives in his MKUltra research, was to make people induce insanity without a person's awareness.
Was there
Spooky.
any contact with Jack Ruby before he killed
That
Oswald?
that was one of the things. I can't tell you how hard.
And that's what I love about like this particular journalist. He doesn't like speculate. He basically did like all his research, and if it's not like on paper and like he can prove it, he doesn't definitively say it. He basically says like, "Hey, I can't say that," and whatever.
You mean
before.
You mean West and
Yes,
Ruby?
anyone that could have done something to get Oswald to kill Ruby.
No,
Or
Ruby to kill Oswald.
Ruby to kill Oswald.
Ruby had a lot of connections to organized crime and federal. He was part of, which later emerged, the anti-Castro Cuban effort to overthrow Fidel Castro, which was run. It was Operation Mongoose by the CIA. It was an illegal assassination program. Ruby denied being in it, and that's in the book. I found out that, again, through West's papers that I got access to, Ruby admitted never that he stalked and killed Oswald on the orders of anyone, but that he was working with these people who were suspected of being involved in the assassination if there was a conspiracy. And he had never admitted that to anyone. It's only in West's file. And West withheld that.
So let's break that down. So for people that don't know, the primary theory of who was responsible if there was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, and one of the thoughts was that it had to do with some sort of a CIA operation to overthrow Castro.
Yeah, well, so the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald acted alone.
Right.
There was no conspiracy. Allen Dulles, the former head of the CIA, who was fired by John F. Kennedy, was second in command to Judge Warren and the commission. Richard Helms, who was actually Jolly West's employer for MKUltra, was the liaison between the CIA and the commission. So Helms knew that Ruby, who they called their most important witness in their investigation, the Warren Commission investigation, because he was the one who silenced the killer. There could be no trial for Oswald because he was dead. So they tried to learn everything they could about Ruby to see if he had had any meetings with Oswald prior, or if he had connections beyond the superficial ones to organized crime. Was there something deeper? The commission, which I believe was, a joke from the beginning, it was set to determine. I mean, they said in the beginning their objective was to prove that Oswald acted alone. They came up with that conclusion, but after the first Senate intelligence hearings in the early 70s that exposed MKUltra, Chaos, COINTELPRO, primarily the Frank Church hearings, they found out that Dulles.
As he mentioned that, do you guys remember the movie with the guy that played Mark Zuckerberg in the Facebook? And he starred in the Ultra. I think his name is Jesse Einsberg or something like that. Like pretty much they based his character or what he's going through based on MKUltra stuff.
And Helms and others had lied about the CIA's involvement with Oswald and with their own agents who had these peripheral, we don't know if they were peripheral or not, but definitely encounters with Oswald. They withheld all that. So the House voted to have what they call the House Select Committee on Assassinations that began in 77. In 78, they released their report, which they concluded there was a probable conspiracy to kill Kennedy, that Oswald didn't act alone. And, there's lots of books about that.
Yeah.
And in their findings, and then later the head of the committee, Robert Blakely, wrote a book where he said that Ruby had acted on behalf of the conspiracy to silence Oswald, that he had stalked him, premeditated the murder, and that the whole thing was part of keeping the secret. So was West a part of that? Again, I can't prove it. I wanted to find out if West had any encounter or any, interaction with Ruby prior to Ruby committing the murder.
All of this is so fascinating, guys. Seriously, come on. You guys have to respect this journalist once again.
Couldn't find that. And that's the kind of thing that maybe there's no evidence. Maybe it happened, but there's no evidence. But I wasn't going to put it in the book. And I exhausted every resource I had,
Because that one has always been so puzzling for me, because here's this guy that's not connected to the murder, allegedly, and then steps forward and shoots Oswald in front of everybody.
Yeah.
sentencing himself. I mean, like, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You're the guy who did it.
Yeah.
Everyone saw it.
Right.
You're going to go to jail forever.
Right.
Why would you do that?
Well, the first report, which was fabricated by his first lawyer, who admitted this years and years later, he told Ruby to say he did it to spare Jackie Kennedy from having to come to Dallas for a trial of Oswald.
Yeah.
That was made up.
Made no sense.
And then Melvin Belli was assigned to the case. Ruby fired like 3 lawyers in the first couple of weeks. Then Melvin Belli took over and took it to trial. And his argument was that he had had an epileptic fit and didn't know what he was doing. And when he was grabbed by the cops after he shot Oswald, he said, "Hey, I'm Jack Ruby. What am I doing here? What are you doing to me? Don't you know who I am?" Because he knew all the cops. My argument in my book is it's important. My most important finding is that a CIA contracted agent or researcher for mind control became the most important witness to the Warren Commission. He became that witness's doctor right before he testified and told his story. I go, that should have been disclosed, obviously, to the commission, but they're not going to say it because it's a secret program.
Right. And then he goes crazy.
I got told by a couple of the people who were, nobody on the commission would talk to me that was alive when I started pursuing them. Gerald Ford wouldn't talk to me. Arlen Specter, I think I mentioned that to you before. There's an interesting, I approached Arlen Specter, who was running for re-election. This was 2002, and told him I had new information, and he had always maintained. You know, he made a lot of money off of his books about justice and the magic. You know, defending his magic bullet theory. He always said, if anybody comes to me with new evidence, I'll look at it with an open mind. So I had sent him a persuasive letter. Well, his people. They finally said, all right, if you have these documents showing that this doctor who treated Ruby, you know, and within the 24 hours he lost his mind, Specter will look at them and then decide if he'll talk to you. Fax them to us. And at that point, that was 2002, I had lost the magazine story and I didn't have a book deal, so I was operating entirely on my own. I said, I can't send this stuff to you because it's my smoking gun, the letters between Gottlieb and West describing all the experiments. So finally, Specter agreed to talk to me on the phone for a few minutes, and it was amazing. He called me from the Senate floor while they were waiting to vote on whether or not they were going to invade Iraq. This was 2002.
Oh, shit.
So we were only supposed to talk for a few minutes.
I love how Joe's just like silent and just allowing him to like explain everything. Joe's interview skills are like top notch.
And when I explained what I had and what it showed West had, you know, been involved with at the time he treated Ruby, he said, well, if you're not going to send the stuff to me, I don't know, you know, I need to see it. And I go, well, I can't send it to you. And he said, well, you want to meet me? Because I had told him I was in Philadelphia visiting my folks, and he was from Philadelphia too. He says, I'm there on the weekend. I'll meet you Saturday. I have a squash game at the Wyndham Hotel. Meet me there.
Christ, squash.
So we had a meeting set up for like 3 days later, and this is something I'm always second guessing about. I made a decision. I don't think I ever really got paranoid during this, but Specter had been a long-term senator. He was running for re-election, and it was the first time in his career that the polls were against him, that his opponent was, they were predicting that Specter was going to lose. He had also, you know, defended this magic bullet theory forever. I mean, more people knew him for the Kennedy assassination than anything else. I thought, so if I do meet with him and I show him these documents, maybe it was grandiose of me too. I thought he's going to go, oh my God, I need to be part of their, you know, exposure. Because if he didn't and walked away from it, I thought they were important enough that he would know that would, you know, once they were publicized and he had the opportunity to say, hey, we need to look into this, and didn't, he would look bad. So then I thought, well, maybe he's going to, two things. He's either going to use it for to get publicity, have a press conference and help him in his reelection, or
he's going to suppress it.
He's going to use it to be the hero of it.
I thought he was going to suppress it.
run with it before I published a book, and then I'll just be a footnote, to all this because he took it. So I canceled the meeting the morning of.
Oh.
I called up his press secretary and his cell phone, like the 3 phones I had for him, and I said, "You have to tell Senator Specter, I am so sorry, but there's an emergency. I've got to go back to Los Angeles." I actually was scheduled to go the day after on Sunday. So it was a lie. And I didn't talk to anyone. I just left the message, and I said, I'm so sorry, but obviously I've worked so hard to get this meeting. It's embarrassing, but I have to go back. So I left my parents' place to go to the post office because
Well, I guess Spectre knows now if he watched this interview,
I had been there for 3 months. I was actually writing the first version of the
or at least this podcast, not interview.
proposal at their place to get away from my friends and, all the distractions in LA. And I was only going for like 15 minutes. I go, "Mom, if that press secretary calls," I told them I was leaving, so tell him that I just went to the airport and I apologize. And she goes, "Well, I can't lie to a press secretary." I go, "Ma, you got to." So I go to the post office and I come home 15 minutes later, and she's like as white as a ghost. I go, "What?" And she goes, "Senator Specter called." I go, "You mean the press secretary?" She goes, "No, he called himself. He wanted to know what happened, why you changed your mind, and why you were canceling, and I had to lie to him." And I don't lie. I go, "But I lied to the senator." He was a big deal in Pennsylvania back then. And so I don't know if that was a mistake on my part. I think, 2020 hindsight, I should have done it and taken my chances. I did
Who
go.
knows what he
Yeah.
would have done?
I know, that's the
a
thing.
very powerful man, and if he thought that he was in danger,
Yeah.
he could have fucking driven off a cliff.
I really didn't try to think like that through all those years.
I would have thought like that. When it comes to Arlen Specter, do you know how deep that guy had to be in on that to come up with that wacky magic bullet theory?
Yeah.
That theory's so bad. The
I
fact that actually gets debated, and the fact that it never gets brought up, that there were more bullet fragments in Connolly's body than there were missing from that bullet.
Yeah.
And the fact that anyone who knows anything about guns,
Right.
anyone who's ever shot a gun, who's seen what a bullet when a
Right.
bullet shatters bone, what it looks like, would look at that fucking bullet and think that bullet went through 2 human beings.
Right.
And the fact that the reason why they had to make up this theory in the first place was because a guy was hit.
Honestly, I'm not like an expert on guns and bullet fragments and so forth, so I'll just take Joe's word on it. He's spoken to like a lot of experts, and he owns like plenty of guns. So, if someone knows better, they can comment down below. But I'll take Joe's words on this.
Hit by a ricochet on the underpass.
Yeah.
You know the whole story behind that?
Well, here's what I did. I tried not to lose myself any more than I had to in each compartmentalized area I was going into. So with the Kennedy assassination, I just did a superficial, because like Manson, I was never interested in anything so-called
definitely going to be
conspiracies.
going into the
I never cared
Manson
about
thing.
Kennedy or the John F. Kennedy assassination. But once I found out that West was connected to Ruby, and again, that was a moment that I was like, oh no. First it was West and the CIA, and then I'm like, and Ruby? How can I not look at the Kennedy assassination? So I kept my focus narrowly just on Ruby, Oswald, West, Specter. I looked a little bit at the magic bullet and agree with you, but I never did a deep dive into a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, super interesting clip, guys. So while this was actually playing, I gave my thoughts, and overall, this is like a clip that's for like all the conspiracy theorists, and sometimes I'm one. I definitely believe most of what he's saying in this because he definitely did like a lot of research, but I really want to know what you guys actually think down below. So please go ahead, leave a comment down below and let me know. So once again, my name is Alex from YouHubTV. Please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe, and please leave a comment down below so we can have a discussion about this. I'm out.